Ooh, and here we are. And a quick first order of business, we got to do something about this look. I mean, this is just primitive. Just like you need to do something about the Twitch ARRchive Parley submission form, which I just posted in chat. Please submit your questions and I'll answer them this stream next week during the break, so roughly in the middle of the stream. I do also make these archives on YouTube, so if you want to watch the stream as an archive on YouTube, or like you want the answer to your question on YouTube, that archive stream has timestamps. I record the stream, you know, the live stream is made while I have a stopwatch going, so timestamps get kind of automatically generated. I make them as I go, so it will be really easy to find your answer. Please submit questions to that. There's plenty of room. Get a free little Q&A thing. Let me send people a Twitter and Discord notification. When I set up the stream today, I was going to call Hydroid a weirdo pirate, and Twitch said that I couldn't say the word weirdo in my title. I don't think that's that offensive, but maybe I'm missing something. Yeah, let's make Hydroid look like cool and stuff. Asymptomatic, welcome back. That'll be the first segment today. We'll get started. Now, there's this. And I guess I like this. I don't know, like I like the coat with the coat. Like I'm a fan of that. I kind of like that. It does clip a bit. Yeah, okay. We'll go with this for now. But I don't know. And I really like the Excalibur Zato animation set. I think it looks piratey. I guess he's got more of a belt with this one, right? So maybe that fits better. Let's default the colors and start there. Okay, so they've used a lot of white, kind of making him look like a piece of the shore, I almost want to say. Let's see what we can play around with. Some fashion Buildcraft at the beginning of the stream, as we've been wont to do recently. I like the idea that that these are like fault lines, and so you see there's a sort of like geological color gradient in there. I like that. What about more like a geode? Like what about something that's sort of green? What's that like? Okay, it looks a little tropical on the helmet. Maybe I want to change the helmet. Do I? Should we play around with the helmet? I know you all love when I mismatch the helmet and the skin. Folks love that. That's a thing people have said many positive things about before. So we'll do that a little bit. I kind of like this. I always liked this helmet. Maybe we'll go there. Welcome back to Bryos, Ragnavar, Pingers, XLCAD, I believe. Is that a good way to pronounce your name? You're a first-time chatter, but have been following since 2017. Whoa. Welcome. Glad to hear from you for the first time. What's going on? Audio Forces, welcome back. Lion, welcome back. How you doing? We're starting today's stream with a bit of fashion, because I hadn't really done a fashion update that I was happy with. Now, one unique thing about Hydroid's deluxe skin here, see, a lot of the alt helmets for frames have a problem where they don't share a metallic channel with the rest of the skin, but Hydroid's skin here, this deluxe skin here, the Rakam skin, well, it doesn't have a metallic. If you go to accents, see that gold where it would be isn't a metallic, so it's easy to kind of combine this helmet. There's a minor problem. You'll see that this helmet has these, yeah, kind of like tail, you know, sort of like a bandana tie or ponytail sort of thing that does clip with the coat, which I guess is bad. We could take the coat off, I suppose. I like it, but ooh, I can kind of get behind that too, actually, if we had a Syandana with it. Okay, it looks a bit silly. But, you know, something a bit different, right? Let's, this is also one of those Warframes, and you all know I really enjoy this kind of thing in fashion in Warframe. Making your fashion frame such a way you like Buildcraft the frame to not look like that frame. Like people look at the frame and they're like, which Warframe is that? I kind of like that. I'm gonna keep it with this. We might do some armaments, but for now we'll just do some basic coloration, shall we? Okay. So the the sash. And now that we've gotten rid of the helmet, we could maybe go for that greener color I was interested in, because it's not so vivid when it's not on the helmet. Kind of a swamp looking color. I kind of like that. Like a poisonous, some kind of poisonous fish. You see it on the arm. Yeah, I don't know. I can kind of get down with it. Maybe I'll start there. He also looks kind of naturey in a way that I don't mind. I don't hate. Perhaps you do, but unfortunately, I have the power. Now what about the rest? How about something a little bit tanner? Ooh, yeah, I like that. It's a little sandy too. Yeah, I can get down with that. And I like keeping that as a light color. Sort of into making this way darker. Like, what if we just make it straight up black? Does that look ridiculous? No, it's still pretty light, actually. I sort of like that. We're gonna really have to put a color accent on the accent channel, but that's fine. I'm trying to keep it warm. You see this is kind of a warmer green. This is a brownish black. And then for the accent channel, I'm gonna go for something a little dramatic instead. No, like something really loud though. Like just straight up red. Okay, that looks silly. That's okay. A little salmony. This is gonna be a challenging color channel, I think. Something purple? That's interesting. You get kind of a toxic fish looking vibe, right? A lily, that's interesting. I can get down with that a little bit. Audio Forces, welcome back. Andy's Bastards, Large Man, and Eraistein, welcome back. Did I get here early enough for the tea, or did Zandy chug it all down already? Tea? Are we having a bunch of tea? Iced tea stream? Is that what we're doing? You want tea Buildcraft already? Please, take me out to dinner first. I can get down with some purple on the skin. Kind of a toxin pirate. He looks like a rogue, stereotypical rogue character. All right, what do we do for the for this channel? I've got an idea. How about ooh, or like go for more of a blood color. Lean into that rogue flavor a little bit. That just looks pink. But like, I don't know, that could be all right. I could get down with some, a lot of people have done like lava, which I think looks kind of nice. Yeah. That can be cool. I don't know if it works with these colors for me. A very, you know what I like about this is it looks like a jungle Hydroid, which I think is cool. But I don't know, might not work for you. I kind of like that. Let's see, is there anything to be said about the two-tone energy? Nah, not a lot. But we could add a little bit of red to make it look more lava-ish. That just doesn't change much, but I guess that's fine. I kind of like that. Get like a jungle Excalibur, I immediately said. Red base, orange highlights for maximum lava. Sure, we'll swap them and see what that looks like. Easily done. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I can pick up that. Wow, that really changes it a lot. Okay. We'll leave it like that. Could try black energy along with the orange. Might be stronger depending on the emissive texture. Sure, yeah, we'll try that. So we'll do something like a lighter orange and then just like straight black. Yeah, I don't know. This might just combine the two colors straightforwardly, which is going to lead to it being not... We'll leave it like that for now. And then the energy. Well, of course, it's got to be lava still, right? How about we do a brighter orange and then, yeah, like black. Or a dark color for some of it. That could be kind of cool. All right, yeah. People hate this. I kind of like it. You get like a jungle warrior, a sort of like commando in the jungle looking Warframe, which I like. I think it's kind of weird, but I can get down with that. And now just complete. I mean, I think this is all right too, actually, but I Hawaiian deity incarnation of volcanic fury. Yes. Which, yeah, I mean, sure. They look pretty good on the back. Yeah, I don't think, yeah, maybe not, but I think it's kind of weird, but I'm kind of weird, so that's cool. Yeah, there we go. See? Now we get a little jungle stank for you, Lion. We get a little bit of that, we get a little bit of that jungle stank. Yeah, there's like a light metallicness to that gray or black channel that's really working for me. Yeah, love me some stank lines. You got to get that. I mean, how you not gonna jungle techno? No, that's way too much. Some geological formations. I need I need a voice clip of Zandy saying jungle stank. Ah, yes. We all need things. Ooh, how about this? Okay. Yeah. I feel like this is an appearance where this isn't too much, don't you think? I think the flames thing is too much. I kind of want to go for the spore ephemera here. I feel like this is an appearance where this isn't too much and instead looks kind of cool. Like deal with the devil in a jungle temple kind of fashion looking thing. And you can modify the colors of the spores a bit. Yeah, okay. Look at that, and you get a little bit of that like all right, I can get down with that. I kind of like this. Okay. All right. We might move around. People were saying like the energy. You can see at the moment it's like orange and then black. Maybe black and then orange will feel better when we actually see the abilities, but we can test that out. Obviously, it's of the utmost importance that Hydroid have fashion that you're happy with. Like that's just obvious. And it's so obvious that I don't feel the need to explain why that is. But surely later we could take a moment to talk about like why it's particularly necessary to fashion Hydroid for 15 minutes of our 2 hour stream. But you know, right now I really just feel that it's not entirely necessary to extrapolate on that. So we won't. So there's no need. Of course, I mean you all know. That's fine. Now, what about Cyandanas? Now, the armor, like, we don't need to get into all of it right now. We just want an appearance that's workable. But the Cyandana, I feel like this is important because we've got those coattails from before that we're kind of clipping. You'd want to pick something that was a bit lower on the back, I think, to avoid that clippiness. And a lot of this appearance is having like the open back. So I don't want to do too much to screw around with that. Like I want to embrace that a bit. Is there a Cyandana that we feel like would embrace that a bit? That is the question. We'll do a quick browse. But I might, you know, it might take a lot of fiddling to find something that I'd be happy with. A little clipping can maybe be okay with me in this case, but like it, you know. Anyway, we'll look around slightly. Ooh, okay. That adds something without being like too much. It looks a bit silly actually to me, but I actually kind of love that. Oh, the shark fin one, we gotta get that. Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me look through the rest, but that's actually genius. Ooh, I like this one. It's gonna clip a little bit, but I don't think too badly. Let me just look at this one quickly. Okay, recolor aside. Yeah, that clips in a way that I can live with personally. So if you wanted like a smaller one, that's kind of nice. That's weird. Oh my goodness, it has to be the shark fin one. That's genius. Obvious genius, but genius nonetheless. Apparently wasn't that obvious to me. Something like the Vanquish banner could be okay here. I kind of like that actually. But yeah, man, like we definitely need to go. We go shark fin for sure. Like that's beautiful. I'm just looking at a few others that caught my attention. I don't mind this like backpack thing. But yeah, we gotta go. We're going for the shark fin. Oh my goodness, you've gotta do that. Let's go. Oh, all right. Now we're talking. Okay, I'm not sure I'm gonna keep that, but let's just go with it for now, right? So here's our he looks like badass and just really doofy at the same time, right? And from the front, it's like, whoa, don't mess with this guy. And then in the back, it's like, Anyway, yeah. There's another one that's way bigger that looks similar to the one I have. Maybe I don't own it. Let's look down. Do you know what it's called? Yeah, we could look at ones I don't own. It's further up here. Again, I probably just haven't bought it, so I might need to look through here and find out. And again, like this is highly important. I mean, we can't just talk about Hydroid builds without getting the fashion on point. It's like a huge two-piece fin. I have no idea which one you're referring to. We'll scroll a bit.
Wow, closing in on 2 years. Best Buildcraft channel by far.
Pazak, thank you very much for the tier 1 sub, and I really appreciate the support for the past 20 months. But I would like to ask you a question that is maybe missing the point of the of that comment. Are there other Buildcraft, like focused Buildcraft channels that you all watch? Like channels that explicitly are focused on builds? Oh, we could do this. Maybe this is what you meant, Lily. I actually more seriously like this, but I'm not sure that I'm willing to trade away the doofiness of the other one. Like, do I like this better? I guess. It clips in a way that doesn't bother me. We'll go with this for now. This is so silly. Anyway. Oh, just the masterpiece. Okay, there is one accessory I want to put on. It looks a bit much. This whole fashion's theme is, the keyword for this fashion is a bit much. Yeah, the other one was just like doofy and adorable, which I liked. Whoa. But, yeah. I don't know, I don't think that's so bad. So bad to make something a little silly. That can be okay. I really want to do this. Like, I think this is the play. I'm sure you'll agree. So we'll put that on there. That just seems right to me. That seems very fitting. I mean, it just, you know, sort of a low-hanging fruit. You know, I know I'm not taking a lot of risks with this fashion, but anywho. Let me make it a bit darker. I'll actually make I'll make this a bit lighter to match with that a little better. I'll still probably need to fiddle around with those colors. Why are we going into a mission? No. We're okay. We got a fashion frame that I think we can all agree this is one of the fashion frames ever made. So as long as we can all agree with that, we've got our nice jungle volcano Hydroid. Glorious, a Cthulhu monster from a volcano in the jungle instead of from the ocean deep. You know, the Lovecraftian horror of a vast, unknown expanse where you can find unknown horrors lurking beneath the waves could work in a jungle setting as much as under the ocean, which is what we've invoked here, using an advanced artistic interpretation of Hydroid's deluxe skin. We have crafted a carefully calibrated Lovecraftian jungle commando Hydroid. That is what this is. We did that on purpose. We just did that. There you go. It was an advanced artistic interpretation. Very nice. Circling back, Pazak, you said, most of the channels I watch are at least 50% or more Buildcraft. I don't really enjoy watching someone just playing. Yeah, but what I mean is, like, their sole focus isn't Buildcraft, right? Like, Brozim, since I'm familiar with him, isn't, like, dedicated to talking about Buildcraft. He just does a lot of it in the games that contain it. That isn't the same thing as having, like, the the sole focus of the channel is making builds. No, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying what I meant was I'm not aware that there is literally anyone whose sole focus is like builds but not in a specific game, rather than merely having a lot of Buildcraft in the thing they make, or like featuring some games that have a lot of Buildcraft. I would be really interested in such a person. If and it's okay if I don't agree that the person is like that. I'm still very happy, Pazak. It was really generous of you to say specific people. That's extremely helpful to think about, like who else do you get the thing you get from me from? You know, it doesn't have to be in the same way. That's really helpful. Thank you. Anyway, okay, a long prelude that I'm sure we can all agree is deeply important. We can't make Hydroid builds without doing this. So, so well done. It came out great, as you can see. Very nice. And now we'll proceed and discuss the builds, shall we? On to the ability overview. We go. Hydroid. And to begin the discussion about Hydroid, yeah, this Warframe has a lot of abilities that people are not super high on, that people maybe don't think of as being so great. I would like to open the discussion by focusing on the idea that a lot of these abilities are very effective zone control. They're good at holding down a location. You can cast Tempest Barrage, Tentacle Swarm on remote locations like interception points, and they make it very difficult for enemies to like do anything there, or they can at least stall for time. It's not merely crowd control. It allows you to crowd control a location that you are not present at after you leave. These are good for like defense or mobile defense missions. If you want to go somewhere to just like get some loot, or AFK, I suppose. We'll get back to that in a second. This is a Warframe that is unusually good at that. You know, Tempest Barrage and Tentacle Swarm. Undertow is also a really good AFKing ability. Anyway, I've before said that this is a good ability for streaming, because if you need to talk to chat, you could just go into a puddle. But for real, this is an effective way to, you know, defend an area. It might be a touch boring. You don't get to see your Wonko fashion when you use it. By the way, in the diorama for Hydroid, doesn't this look sick? Like, it looked ridiculous when we were just in the arsenal, but like here, come on, this is cool. Like without the shirt on, and he's got the like swept back with a bandana on kind of helmet. This looks sick, doesn't it? Anyway, we've done very well with the fashion. But yeah, my point was, a lot of these abilities, the idea is that they would be useful for controlling an area after you leave. It's not just you cast them and the enemies present are crowd controlled. New enemies entering the area after you leave are then controlled. This could be valuable for like mostly interception. It can be useful for something like not very many of these, but like hijack missions where you're moving a payload and you'd like the enemies back there to stay back there. They can be okay for disruption. You just don't want to get mobbed by enemies while you deal with the demolists that walk there. But it's true that this type of ability is a bit niche, I would argue. It's really only interception that sticks out to me as like, this is obviously somewhat applicable for that mission type. So okay, Hydroid's passive. You summon a tentacle when you do a slam for 15 seconds. 50% chance. So if you do a lot of melee slam attacks, some things in melee that don't look like a slam are, and some things that don't look like a slam aren't. But there are melee stances that slam a lot. So you can make a bunch of tentacles with this. I don't know. I mean, I've never been that convinced that this is really worth doing to build up a bunch of tentacles places. But it's an interesting passive. It would be cool to have like a way to abuse this and set up a bunch of tentacles somewhere. Like in a choke point in a hallway in some Warframe missions, that seems vaguely effective. Tempest Barrage. Yeah, mostly zone control thing. The augment for this can remove a lot of enemy armor, but the damage on this ability is quite paltry. Note that this and a lot of Hydroid's other abilities will affect enemies in Undertow, even if it doesn't look like it. If Tempest Barrage strikes the surface of Undertow, it hits all the enemies inside. Tidal Surge. You do a wave, enemies take pretty minor damage, you move pretty quickly, and there's an augment that makes you status immune, which also means knockdown immune. A little minor. I think. Um, but yeah, an ability. This can be a pretty powerful movement tool. You move laterally. You don't go up. You don't get vertical movement out of this. Undertow. You hit a button, you're a puddle. You can target enemies and tentacle them into the puddle, and Tempest Barrage and Tentacle Swarm will hit them while they're in the puddle. Um, and then Tentacle Swarm. Yeah, you summon a bunch of tentacles, they grab enemies. This ability has a really interesting scaling with strength, where it's like, I think it's like the square. It does a little bit more than average with strength, but the base duration's not very high. Base damage, excuse me. Against Corpus up to medium levels, this does magnetic damage, so you can kind of kill them, but it's not. I don't know if that's something to write home about. This will grab enemies and control them, but it does also make them a little difficult to hit sometimes because they're flailing around in the air. Explosive weapons make this a bit easier to use. Now, Tentacle Swarm and Tempest Barrage also feature a hold mechanic where you can hold down the ability to make it hit a bigger area. That's why they have like minimum maximum values. You see this ability will have a longer duration, do more damage. This will summon more tentacles, hit a bigger radius if you hold them down. And it doesn't cost more energy to do that. So that's pretty valuable. One nice kind of hidden thing about Hydroid 2, a lot of frames, their final ability costs 100 energy. Hydroid's only has 50 as its startup cost, so it is a bit cheaper to carpet bomb the map with effects. Panda, you said, does the hold cast of his one make it easier to hit Undertow? Tempest Barrage doesn't hit a bigger area when you hold it. It just lasts longer and does more damage, so it shouldn't make it easier to hit like enemies in Undertow. But it lasting longer might give you time to set up. I'm not sure if I'm answering the right thing, but it doesn't make the radius bigger, which is a bit confusing because it does show 10 to 10 meters. And Tentacle Swarm's radius does get a lot bigger. It gets 3 times bigger when you hold it. I think Tentacle Swarm, at least, you really benefit from holding. Note that these abilities have modest base range, not extremely high, but not too low, and pretty bad base damage, like not very good base damage. Undertow, finally, does damage enemies inside it for a % of their health to some extent, so this can be an effective way to kill enemies even without particularly high strength, because over time it will, decay their arbitrarily high health. So, really good zone control effects. The damage of the abilities is kind of bad, but almost all Warframe abilities do insignificant damage at higher levels. The effects are pretty good. It's a lot of crowd control. They don't do anything that powerful, though. You're not getting any effect more than just like carpet bombing enemies with inconveniences. Hydroid, notably, lacks any damage increasing ability or obvious survivability ability. This can keep you safe, and it does actually heal you and allies that stand on it if you have the augment. But it doesn't make him like tankier. It doesn't make his health worth anymore. So Hydroid is a frame that doesn't really check the box that I often talk about. A lot of frames checking, like a lot of frames have like a basic damage increase ability and a basic survivability ability. Hydroid kind of doesn't. To me, that's really the problem. That's what I'd be looking for in something like Tidal Surge or maybe Undertow, maybe in place of Tempest Barrage and or Tentacle Swarm. These abilities are, it's not that they're really bad. A lot of frames have similar, like just throw out some crowd control abilities. And these are better in one sense. They linger in an area in a way that some frames abilities don't. The problem is that Hydroid doesn't really have basic tools in his kit, in my opinion. That's just one way to think of it. And particularly, I think Tidal Surge is the weak link. This ability just doesn't accomplish anything, really. It can make you status immune, but many other abilities that do many more things can do that. And you may not need that effect. I really wish this ability did environmental damage. In any case, we'll begin the discussion about making builds, but look for this to get voted off the island, at least in my book. I just don't think it's earning its space at all. I don't think it really does anything. It is pretty fun to fly around the map using this ability, though. It's kind of a separate matter, but not something that I do not enjoy. I have been known from time to time to enjoy moving quickly using Tidal Surge, but that's not really relevant here. Cool. So Hydroid base stats too. I actually think this is a little bit more worth discussing for for this frame because we're not checking that basic box of like some kind of survivability layer. And Hydroid's base stats are a little odd. His shield capacity is really high. Now, shield capacity is weird because overshield capacity is static. Every frame has 1200 except Harrow has double. And so building shield capacity, a lot of ways to get a lot of shields give you overshields, so you don't need shield capacity to hold them. It's very odd when a frame has high shield capacity. It arguably doesn't really do anything. But it's a lot. Like, you know, if you were to build, just quickly, if you were to slap on some shield mods, I mean, that's a lot of shields. Like, I'm not sure that matters, you know, but it is a lot of shields. Something I have in the past kind of disregarded or hand waved on Hydroid. But for real, like, that's a high shield value. It's maybe what, like a third of Hildren's shield value? That's a lot, you know. I don't know. You know, Nidus has a third of Inaros's health value, and we consider Nidus to have a lot of health. I don't know. I'm not sure that matters, but I think it's kind of interesting. And Hydroid also has pretty good base armor. Not amazing, but not half bad. 275, to the point where if you were to build the Umbral mods on your Hydroid, or these two, you would arrive at pretty good armor-based damage reduction and a good-sized health pool, and you could simply add adaptation and directly tank some damage. This is fine. You know, I said there's maybe no basic survivability layer on Hydroid, but having good base armor kind of does the job. So, it's not like you can't do this, you know. This is all right. You know, on the steel path, this will often get you killed if you immediately take damage from higher damaging enemies, but will often be just enough as long as you have a way to sustain your health. This is kind of the bare minimum for survivability, in my opinion, when you're doing, again, like the harder offerings in the game. But it you know, it's a way you can go. I think the shield thing is kind of interesting too. I'm not really sure what else to say about that, but I do think it's noteworthy here. Very rarely do I spend much time talking about a frame's base stats, but I think they're kind of, because of Hydroid's unique combination of like weirdly really high shields and a lack of a survivability focused ability that gives you damage reduction or something, I felt like this was kind of worth discussing. Cool. So now let's talk about builds. And I think the place to start are Helminth abilities. You could use a Helminth ability to address survivability in some way. You could do that. Again, I've sort of agreed we might be wanting to taking off Tidal Surge. I'd like to put on a few augments that I'm rather confident I'm interested in, particularly Corroding Barrage and Pilfering Swarm. Also, Pilfering Swarm is worth discussing. So Corroding Barrage gives you corrosive status effects when your Tempest Barrage hits enemies. Now, if I remember correctly, this isn't affected by negative strength, like the chance to do corrosive, which is true. And it gives Tempest Barrage 100% ability strength. Now, I don't think that's meaningful. I'm not sure that's going to give the ability high damage necessarily. You could take that approach at medium levels. But really the great thing about this is you're getting those corrosive status effects without strength. You don't have to build strength and it will still remove enemy armor. And because of the way that Undertow does damage, you will still kill enemies that are inside of Undertow if you bombard them with Tempest Barrage to remove their armor, and they're taking % base damage inside there, which lets you use Overextended to make the range higher. I'm quite keen on extending the range of these abilities because they have only modest default range, and Hydroid arguably doesn't really do anything else. There's not like a ton of damage on these abilities, Tentacle Swarm's weird damage scaling notwithstanding. Fitting into that theme, Pilfering Swarm is also not affected by strength and gives you more loot from enemies grabbed by tentacles. So I just think this is a nice bonus. It also gives you a somewhat unique appeal for playing Hydroid. There are other frames that boost the amount of loot you get, but not that many, and this is a way to do it with a frame that is very crowd control focused, if that's something you wanted, which, like, I don't know, sure. Again, I'm not here to say whether I do or do not like these things. I'm here to discuss what I think the frame can offer as a unique, fun, effective gameplay experience. And I believe that this deserves a mention and discussion about that topic. Is it a little weird because there's like way more loot you could get? Sure, but do those frames bombard the map with crowd control the way Hydroid does? No, I'm not sure that matters, but it's not my job or your job to figure out if it matters, just to suggest that idea. And I do think in Warframe, a game where broadly you are able to complete missions just fine, making more loot is a very good effect. So I would argue this is warranted. Let's max out the range and go from there. So look at that. We've got very high tentacle swarm range, and you know, a big puddle, etc. And this can be a decent place to start for making a build. Again, you don't have to do this, but that's what I would suggest as like this isn't a bad starting point. What about aura mods? So like Helminth, aura mods. I mentioned weapons that are AoE, make it's kind of easier to hit enemies that are grabbed by tentacles that way. So I value that quite a bit. Yeah. Anyway, I'll catch back up a little bit on chat, but those are some feels. Bastards, you said the only thing I could construct some synergy was around Gloom. His first ability knocks enemies down, the second knocks some enemies down, his fourth ragdolls and creates loot for arcane eruption knockdowns. Everything prolonged by Gloom while keeping health up for the next piece. A Mecha Set Kubro to kill the foes that tentacles grab. Oh yeah, you're throwing the Glaive Prime at them. And then the Kubro's effect is pretty good. That's good. Yeah, I mean, I would argue that doing that with Gloom and Glaive Prime is good on every frame. But it is a little better on Hydroid. He does do a lot of things to enemies that make them, again, like crowd controlled in some way. They could get up more slowly. I'd argue that they make enemies helpless, and so making the enemies get up more slowly doesn't add much. But that's an interesting approach, Bastards. I don't think that's a bad idea. I would argue that's like most frames, that would be an effective approach. I'm not sure I agree that that is that much better on Hydroid. But it's an option. You know, as always, abilities like Gloom, Breach Surge, I don't think that these don't deserve a mention. There's just not a lot to discuss a lot of the time because of course they're good. You want to take that approach, you can. It's probably not helpful for me to recommend it. But that's an interesting point you made, Bastards, about knocking enemies over. I think a lot of the time in practice, enemies just straight up cannot move. Actually, because we're bringing that up, because we're on that topic, I want to talk about duration a little. Tempest Barrage has kind of bad base duration. It's 10 seconds, and that's the held version. So I believe adding a bit of duration is useful. There's also like a why not component. Do we need to not add duration? You know, there's space. And even just adding this makes it 15 seconds, which is nice. You know, the tentacles are 30 seconds now. I think that's nice. But yeah, like on the topic Bastards brought up about locking enemies down, perhaps making that a bit longer. Tempest Barrage isn't very effective zone control if it lasts 10 seconds. I mean, that's paltry. So I do think duration, you know, maybe dropping a bit of range for duration is warranted too. The duration maybe more urgently needs help than the range. You could argue that that's just Tempest Barrage and not really Hydroid's other abilities. I think it is kind of true of Tentacle Swarm. But you could abandon Tempest Barrage. My first thought was to replace one with Ash's Shuriken, but that would increase the strength burden, so maybe this is actually more efficient. Yeah, that's not a horrible idea. Replacing these, you could argue, kind of clunky abilities with a more effective way to achieve the thing. But I'm keen on giving Hydroid some survivability and or damage increases, because that's what I feel he glaringly lacks. There are some uniquely powerful effects, even if they're not, like, amazing effects. They do a thing, you know, this is fair. I get why you'd want to do that, Pingers. I don't think that's a bad suggestion. Tahitsu, welcome back from the Lurk Squad. I've been watching ARRchives for a while, but I just couldn't miss Hydroid live. I'm absolutely against replacing Tidal Surge. I'm really for replacing Tidal Surge, but I would like to hear why you don't want to do that. Please tell us. I would like to hear that. You know, I mentioned earlier briefly, but Tidal Impunity is an interesting effect in that it gives you long status immunity. There are other ways to be status immune, but this is a lot of it, and it does make Tidal Surge cost very little energy. I don't think that a Warframe ability, which costs 0 energy, but gives you status immunity, is worth using. I just don't think that's good enough. I think there's so much competition. There are so many good Warframe abilities you could swap in. I just don't think that's that good. So that's why I'm not that excited about this. But if you want the ability to avoid knockdown, this is a really good way to get that for a long time. Spellbind comes to mind as an ability I like for that effect, with a really good augment. And again, like, Tidal Surge is fine. You know, it's a fun way to move around. You can clump enemies together and melee them, Red Panda. Yeah, totally. That's not unreasonable. Tahitsu says, Tidal Impunity is an augment that gives status immunity to you and your allies. Well, you have to hit them to give them the immunity, correct? Which you often won't in co-op. You said a very valuable effect considering magnetic slash and corrosive. I believe that's pretty niche, but that is a matter of perspective. When it happens, they're helpful to negate. That's true. But mostly knockdown. Being immune to knockdown allows Hydroid to spam massive explosions with Prime Fulmination and Firestorm, which is effective for killing enemies in Pilfering Swarm. That's true. My quibble is that enemies in Pilfering Swarm are often high enough up off the ground that I don't mind just shooting them, and I wouldn't have been in the blast radius anyway. But making the range of the knockdown big does make knockdown immunity more valuable. There's also a question about whether the mods that remove knockdown are adequate, which is up for debate. If there's a weapon on which you would really like to not run Cautious Shot for some reason, there could be a very effective reason to do that. But personally, I just feel like that's not valuable enough for a one ability slot. I get why you are suggesting like knockdown immunity is not to be overlooked. That's a good point. But I think this source of it is very inefficient. It's a whole ability slot and an augment that merely grants knockdown immunity. At the very least, I would want to infuse like Spellbind or something, which I would argue does a bit more, and you could get the knockdown immunity without the augment. But that's just me. You're not wrong that this is a technically valuable effect. I think it's weird, like this augment, like that status immunity is, in my opinion, a pretty minor benefit, but it's a lot of it. Like that is a bit unique. That might be wrong. My memory is saying those other knockdown immunity abilities are not as long as this. I think that's true, but it might not be. But anyway, it's a decent amount of it. So Tahitsu, thank you for bringing that up. I don't think that's a bad approach. Like, I don't think it's silly to keep this ability. And, you know, really what's more relevant is that many players simply know they will not use, you know, Undertow or Tempest Barrage. And if you know that, don't remove Tidal Surge, remove these, right? I personally think at the very least, I would rather be using Spellbind here. And Red Panda, Spellbound Harvest, the augment for Spellbind, would help with this build's energy desires. Although I'm not sure this is the most energy-hungry build. It is nice to spam these abilities. So that's what I want. Like, I would, if I agreed with that logic, I would use Spellbound Harvest with Spellbind. But that's just me. And that would cost the Helminth ability. Would give some other benefits, but yeah, absolutely. Let there be an argument for Tidal Surge, because a lot of people just like it. I really enjoy moving around with this ability. I don't know. Anyway, the purpose of these is to give you ideas about what you want to use. So right on. Thank you very much for detailing that, Tahitsu. A well-worded, concise explanation. I thought that was great. Rad Hydraman, welcome aboard. Glad to hear you're enjoying the stuff. Glad to see you tune into a stream. It always makes me really happy and reassured when people from probably the YouTube audience, if I could assume, find like my other YouTube channels or the stream as well. If this is something you'd enjoy, I'm very happy you're here. Welcome aboard. Continuing to catch back up a little. And one last thing that I guess I somehow haven't mentioned. Tidal Surge does let you move around in Undertow. I don't value that, but it's really cute. Like, I like that they added something like that. I think that's cool. Ace, you said, the way I see it, Hydroid already has the option for status immunity. Using a Helminth slot to gain the same effect is a trade I wouldn't make. My replacement would be Tempest Barrage for either energy or the armor stripping front. Yeah, but then I'd just say you already have armor stripping. It's just kind of awkward. Don't get me wrong, Ace. I personally agree with you. Like, I wouldn't replace this with Spellbind and Spellbound Harvest because I don't care about getting the knockdown immunity. I personally am not excited about, for me, if a frame has an ability, upgrading their source of that ability without adding a lot of new utility is a last resort. To me, that's like the least interesting recommendation to give the audience, you know? That excites me the least. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm just saying personally, the way I think of it, like, I would rather upgrade this than, like, I like Tempest Barrage. Like, I have a bias for Corroding Barrage. I think this is effective. I have a little nostalgia for it, I think, because I've just used this for a long time. But yeah, anyway, you make a very good point. I feel that way too. I don't know. I don't recommend replacing this with Spellbind, but I do think that accomplishes something. You do get an energy restoration effect from Spellbound Harvest as well. With these stats, how about Resonator? Let the sirens lure the sailors into your den. Interesting. Resonator, eh? Okay, the first thing that comes to mind is redundant, question mark. Do I feel like this provides utility Hydroid doesn't already have? Couldn't you spend the time casting this, casting Tempest Barrage to control that space anyway? But this lets you move enemies off of a point, which can be valuable. You know, that gets us into a discussion about, like, where we're going to use Hydroid. Are we going to dedicate this build to be like an interception utility, in which case moving the enemies off the point is actually quite nice, perhaps? We'll grab a weapon that removes nullifier bubbles, maybe the Miter, and go to town, right? I could get down with that. I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like this adds a lot of new utility. But I like this Helminth ability. I like that the augment that lets you control it is an Exilus mod. I'm fairly high on this ability, so you're you're preaching to the choir a little bit. I'll admit that bias. You could use the augment to make enemies walk into your other abilities, which sounds fun and maybe kind of effective. That's interesting. Like activating Tentacle Swarm and then navigating more enemies into the tentacles. That would mostly just save you energy, but that does sound fun. That's an interesting idea, yeah. That is a charming gameplay flow to me. Feather, welcome back. I missed the Passion Frame part. Did you make use of the new Soaker ephemera? I don't know what that is. Is there a new Super Soaker themed ephemera that I would want? Is Dog Days still active so I can still get that? Dog Days has fish ephemera. Dog Days ended yesterday. This has been one of the busiest parts of my life, so I don't really regret not playing it. I really didn't have time. At the moment, we're using the Spore ephemera, which I think is kind of nice on this fashion. I like the eldritch looking energy it gives the appearance, personally. No, Bastards, that was fun flavor. Bastards was saying Resonator to let the sirens lure the sailors into your den. I got you. I didn't immediately make the connection about, like, cast Tentacle Swarm and then repeatedly pull enemies into it. I wasn't thinking that immediately, but that makes sense. No, I can get down with that. Lion, you said Panzervopal Phyla with the synth mods, Equilibrium, Dispensary, and Arcane Energize to get enough energy to stay in Undertow indefinitely with Tidal Surge and move around, just for blob frame memes. That sounds like a build that I would make. That has the same energy as that one build we made with the Oberon, where you can stay in the downed state indefinitely. You can go down and stay downed but not dead forever, which makes you immortal. You just have to crawl everywhere, and you can only use your secondary. That has the same energy as that build, so I can get down with that a little bit. I don't think I'm going to focus on making that, but that's a funny idea line. Louis Aldu, is that an okay pronunciation? Thanks for the follow. Welcome aboard. How you doing? Is there a Helminth ability that causes enemies to fight for you? That could be a fun combination with Tentacle Swarm. Yeah, I am a little worried that that would result in you double crowd controlling enemies. You know, enemies would be unable to act, but would fight for you if they weren't CC'd. But you could always add something like Breach Surge. You know, this ability is quite generally good, but it would give Hydroid, you know, it's weird. For a frame that has a lot of crowd control, Hydroid doesn't have an ability where you just press a button and enemies around you are crowd controlled and then you leave. Like, Undertow is almost that. Tempest Barrage is a slow version of that. Tentacle Swarm is a slow version of that. I could see someone saying, like, I just want crowd control the Warframe, and adding Breach Surge. Like, I suppose. This does radiation status effects, which is why I thought of it for enemies fighting for you. Mind control? We went really deep in a mind control build that one time. You remember that? Ace, that was your fault. Asymptomatic, step forward and take your punishment. Yeah. So it's a thing you can do. You can buff the mind control target's damage by a lot, like by a bit. Heavy breathing. Yeah. So I don't know. That's interesting. I don't hate this resonator idea. You know, the idea of baiting the enemies into your sphere of influence. That mind control stream was an adventure for levels 3 to 5. But once your party has leveled past that, I'm not sure it's particularly worth it. Once they have 3rd level spells, it's just going to be a bit of a mess. But an adventure nonetheless. It absolutely was. Oh my goodness. We will loop back around to that Nyx build eventually, because I thought it was kind of okay. It's a complete meme, but it was more effective than it has any right to be. So yeah. So I would say, okay. So we'll collect our thoughts a little bit. Something I'm trying to do better with these streams, you know, as we've been doing these every week. One thing I'm trying to improve on a little bit is making the timestamps more useful. I put these up as stream archives. They automatically archived on Twitch, so you can watch them here for a few months, but I also put them on YouTube. And when I do these streams, I have a timer running at the same time, kind of like if you were running laps, and you can hit split to auto-generate timestamps. I just don't know what they are. So I quite obviously say, like, and now we're going to talk about da-da-da-da-da. And training myself to do that, I can easily hit the timestamp and hear myself say, this is what this part of the stream is about, right? Something I'm trying to do a bit better is just make there be slightly more timestamps to divide up that discussion. I would now like to take a step back and say, okay, we've got some candidates for Helminth abilities. Resonator could make you a Hydroid that was very, very focused on his own control. Now, I do believe Hydroid is quite good at that. I do think that's something Hydroid does uniquely well. I do think that's a strength of Hydroids, and I don't think Hydroid has a lot of other strengths. You have a couple abilities that are very good at controlling space, and not only can you cast them from very far away, they also affect that area after you're gone. They don't just crowd control enemies once when you cast them. For the next, 15 seconds, new enemies entering that area cannot, move or whatever, which can be helpful for interception. I do think that's a strength of Hydroids. I'm not sure I feel like there are other strengths of Hydroid. So if you wanted to lean into that, Resonator definitely adds to that. Resonator with its Conductor augment is a very good zone control ability. I for my money, one of the better ones. So if you want that, I think that's a cool approach. You'd probably replace Tidal Surge with it, and perhaps we'll do that. Feather, you said Hydra doesn't really have a damage buffing ability like a lot of frames do. Is there an ability that deals damage or buffs your damage, but isn't hurt by having negative strength? Like, at the moment, we're benefiting a lot from not needing to build strength. Is there a damage buffing ability or a good way to help us kill enemies that doesn't mind that we have negative strength. That's a good idea. That's a good thought. I don't know. Let's take a look. But that's smart. The first thing that comes to mind are those like status enhancing Helminth abilities, maybe. Such as what? Like expedite suffering. But this is affected by strength. The damage multiplier on the effects is affected by strength. What about what's that other one called? There's another ability kind of like this that does stuff with status. Sickening Pulse. Is this affected by strength? It is, isn't it? Teitsu said, petrify with Orgaze for maximum loot. Enemies that are petrified, Tehitsu, will not be picked up by Tentacle Swarm, as far as we can tell. You could have both, but they don't seem to be combinable straightforwardly. Something I've tried in the past. It's a little unclear, but I'm pretty sure that that doesn't work. Energized Munitions. Ooh, is this not affected by strength? It isn't, is it? That's true, right? That's a good one. Humber Stump, that this is cool. It would benefit from getting some duration, which I think we want anyway with our current stats. Quite clever, in my opinion. Yeah, this is a great approach. A good way to increase damage on some weapons. That I don't believe is affected by strength. I could be wrong. We can check. But yeah, that's an elegant solution. We would need to find a weapon on which this is a damage increase, but there are weapons like that. We're looking for a weapon with a very small magazine size, generally. Those weapons will have a few rounds in the magazine that do tons of damage, but then they just run out, and this makes that extend. You know, you're like quadrupling the magazine size. You could think of it that way. That can be pretty interesting. We might be able to find a weapon that would be a good fit like that. That's cool. Or, you know, you can just make the fire rate of the weapon crazy, and normally that would make you run out of ammo way too quick, but then this will kind of save you from that. A good ability might be a clever solution here. That's smart. I'll write that down as a candidate. I think that's cool. And I'm going to write down options for Helminth ability replacements as we come up with them, even if I'm not going to use all of them. It at least gives you some thoughts. I gather people would enjoy that if it ended up in the final videos. Just typing a few things, and then title surge or whatever out for Energized Munitions. A damage increase that isn't affected by strength. That's really clever. Thank you for suggesting that. Catching back up a little bit more. Because Undertow drains energy when you move, Vile Rush has a funny interaction that ends up destroying all of your energy. What? That's such an epic non-bow. That's anti-Buildcraft, but very funny. You can Vile Rush while in Title Surge? That's wonky. Yeah, probably don't do that, but that's very funny. What a weird interaction. Louis, you said, what about Gauss's ability with his augment for status effects when in the zone? Thermal Sunder. This ability is pretty heavily affected by strength, so an ability that increases your damage without being affected by negative strength, this is definitely not. This is an ability where I'd really want a lot of strength. You could make a Hydroid build that focused on having some positive strength. There are many benefits to dumping strength on Hydroid, but you could make a build that did this. This would be a really comfortable way to kill enemies in Tentacle Swarm, if that interested you. That's a thought. I'm not that into it, but I don't think that's a bad idea. This is a comfortable, like, killing enemies with a Warframe power ability. And the augment isn't such a bad way to, yeah, like to add a source of status effect. Sure. Bastards, you said for energized munitions. How about the Kubazar? Oh yeah, a weapon with a really small magazine that converts that into damage with energized munitions. That's clever. I don't know if I have the Kubazar. Oh. Anyway, I mean, I could get it. Need a weapon with a very small magazine capacity for this to translate into a lot of damage. Kubazar? That's a great example of such a weapon. Finally, and well, there might be other things, but one thing, a bit of an elephant in the room, Tahitsu larva, or like grouping abilities, yeah, are like straightforwardly pretty okay here. Now, something I don't love about larva and other grouping abilities for Hydroid here is that they don't outrange Hydroid's control abilities. In other words, larva doesn't have longer range than Tentacle Swarm and Tidal Tempest Barrage. It does still let you group enemies into them, like you could do it on the edge, for example, a little bit. But I'm not too high on these for Hydroid. You definitely get flavor points for larva, though, right? You get more tentacles. That's fun. And you can use a grouping ability that has longer range. Now, Coil Horizon still doesn't outrange Tentacle Swarm, and it actually almost doesn't outrange Tempest Barrage. It does by a tiny, tiny bit. I believe this is the one with the longest range that we have at the moment. But anyway, it's not like a terrible idea. You could do that. I'm just not that excited by these in this case. These are also, generally pretty good go-to Helminth options. That doesn't make them a bad recommendation. But I'm not that excited about these here, and that's why. Hydroman, you said parasitic armor. To convert Hydroid's plentiful shields into an armor buff. Sure. Something we were talking about is how, I think Hydroid, unfortunately, doesn't have, a basic damage increasing ability and a survivability ability. Not that you need those, but many, many frames, most frames, have those two things kind of at base in their kit. A lot of people are not the biggest fan of Ureli, for example, but she does have a potent damage increase ability and a survivability ability in her kit. Hydroid has neither. You can stay alive using his abilities, but he doesn't have a straightforward like damage reduction or damage buff ability. You could leverage Hydroid's weirdly high base shields to make this very effective. Sure. I think this is affected by strength, though. I could be wrong. Not that that's necessarily a problem. You don't have to dump strength. This is an interesting way to address Hydroid's like oddly high base shields. That's an interesting suggestion, yeah, if people wanted that. Cool. Pumbersnub, you said, I've been using energized munitions with the new evolving shotgun weapon, the ARRchive. I love the ARRchive. Modding fire rate and clip size along with the reload on swap ability to machine gun like 30 shots and then swap to melee and let it reload. That sounds fun. Yeah. I think for Hydroid that will make it hard to hit enemies in tentacles, but I love the ARRchive, and I am pretty high on ammo efficiency for it. Or like Pumbersnub, I was using it with Harrow, whose penance ability gives him a lot of fire rate and reload, so you can shoot it really quick and then reload all those shots very fast. But swapping off it is also a great way to do that. Yeah, cool. A big fan of that weapon personally, so I'm totally picking up what you're putting down with that. But yeah, I think I want it to be an explosive weapon. I'm really sold on energized munitions here. I like that idea. I'm gonna go with this in place of Tidal Surge. But that's just me. And again, while I have my reasons for I just don't value the anti-stagger from Tidal Impunity, the augment for Tidal Surge. I just don't value that much. I'm perfectly fine to put Cautious Shot on the weapon most of the time. If you like Tidal Surge and Tidal Impunity, it's not correct to remove them. This is my preference, If you don't use these abilities, obviously you should remove them. You should not remove this ability because the streamer said so, right? The purpose of these streams is to give you ideas for the build that you would like the most, not to convince you that you should copy my build. So anyway, I'm going to go with Energized Munitions as a place to start. And that's why. And yeah, like Kuazar, I'm really interested to have a discussion about what other weapons convert energized munitions into damage output. The Phalarx is a great example that Pumbersnap just gave. Absolutely. Generally, I think weapons that have both a small magazine size and a long reload, and particularly high damage, that combination, I think, is what makes ammo efficiency like a uniquely good damage increase. You can always use fire rate and stuff and get a benefit from energized munitions, but I think it's at its strongest when it's a weapon that has like a very meager I don't have the Kuazar. We might need to get the Kuazar during this stream. But a couple other examples besides the Phalarx. Now, they might not be explosives, which is, I think, what I'd like for Hydroid. And that's a lot of qualifications. That's going to narrow it down quite a bit. A weapon with low magazine capacity, a long reload time, explosive in an area. We don't desperately want another Exilus mod because I want to use Cautious Shot. And also, is good and does a lot of damage. That's some qualities like that. That should narrow it down quite a bit, right? But yeah, a couple other things like the Tigris or the Exergis, these shotguns that have very few rounds but do a lot of damage with them. That's a great idea. Tenet Envoy. This weapon has a kind of interesting relationship where, and this is not anti-synergy. This weapon does have the briefcase reload where when you holster it, you don't need to build any of this stat onto it. It automatically reloads while holstered. That's not bad. Having a long reload time, it just means you can avoid it more because you have the ammo efficiency. It would still be nice when you eventually have to reload to not need to actually reload the gun, right? So that's a good idea. Let's look at the Envoy a little bit. Magazine's not tiny, but I would like to build a bunch of fire rate on this. Let's just briefly look at that, just as an example. We got Cautious Shot. Again, I would enjoy building some fire rate. Looks like I'm already hitting myself on that. Yeah, I'm a bit of a fan of this weapon. It's got big bongo critical stats, which is nice. Good damage. Sure. So that's an example. There's more than I thought. Well done, folks. The Penta series, or Secura Penta. Sure. I don't personally feel this weapon has particularly impressive damage, but it's sure ain't bad. Kuva Tonkor. Yeah, the Tonkor is another good example. With an aggressively tiny magazine. It should... Let's just demonstrate this really quick. I think we'll do this before... Should we do this on the break? We'll do this on the break. Because we're more than halfway through the stream. But yeah, we'll go look at those. Again, because ammo efficiency, like energized munitions, will cause you to spend less than 1 unit of ammo. It should work with weapons like the Tonkor, the Kuva Tonkor. But let's just demonstrate that. Some people might also want to visualize, really? You just spend no ammo? I believe that does work, but let's just make sure. Just some quick responses to other things too. Kuva Ogress has a small magazine while also having zone control, which is elegant. I think Kuva Ogress lacking the damage multiplier of crit is a problem for a build that plans to primarily kill enemies with no actual damage boost, only by shooting the weapon over and over again. But you're right that the Kuva Ogress having Nightwatch Napalm for zone control is a thematic addition. I can get down with that. Secure Penta with napalm grenades is fantastic, although my memory is that napalm grenades doesn't hit a very big area, which might make it not as convenient to use with the tentacles. Is that modified by Firestorm? We might need to try that. I love napalm grenades. It's so much damage. What a great weapon. But I'm not confident that will feel good with the tentacle hitting. I think we want a weapon with a really gratuitously large explosion radius. But let's check. I mean, I love napalm grenades. I would love to be using that weapon. Anyway, yeah, we'll break. here. Very quickly going to thank a few folks for supporting the stream, becoming new followers or subscribers. Then I'll hit the head real quick. When we get back, we'll test out some firearms. Great balls of fire. Pazak, Zalveris, and Pingers, thank you for the subs. I can only do this for a living with your support. I currently am in the process of moving, and that is a time where me, a person who is running this as a business and is very focused on all of you, I don't really do sponsor blocks. I get offered them and refuse them unless they're a really good fit, and they rarely are. It's not like other channels that will do them, from time to time. I'm really focused on not doing that. I'm supported by all of you, so it really helps a lot. Thank you very much for the support. You're the reason I feel like I can move and not worry too much about am I going to be okay? You've all been really generous. You give me a lot of confidence that as we grow, I will be able to make enough money to make this a sustainable full-time career. So thank you very much. That means a lot. And thanks to all the new follows. Louis Aldu, our most recent one, but also a few other folks that followed while I was offline, it looks like. Lynx Woodrobed, for example, you followed a couple hours before the show today. So anyway, welcome aboard. Glad to have you. And with that, I will talk to you all in just a few minutes. Oh, hello there. Past Zandy here to give you a little entertainment while future Zandy hits the restroom during today's show. This is my ARRchive Parley segment where I answer questions from people who watch previous streams as a way to entertain you during this little break. The question today is from Purple Blurple. That's fun. And also similar to another name you could have, who asks, how much junk, is in your trunk? Well, there's a lot. I have a lot of junk, and my car is loaded up with a lot of junk. And at the moment, I'm kind of working toward moving pretty soon, probably in the next month or two. So there's a lot of junk in there. The trunk has a lot of junk. If you know what I'm saying, it's not an innuendo, it's in my car. And I'm going to drive it to the dump and scout out places to move to. Because I'm at a moment in my life where, I've been doing my own thing for a little while. I'm like 29. And there's a lot of things that I've started, but I haven't had as much time as I'd like to finish. And one of them is this series of Warframe builds. For many years, I haven't had a good way to consistently make this, and doing it on streams and then adapting those to YouTube videos has been really good, very fulfilling so far. We've only gotten one of those video adaptations so far, but I was working on the other one right before the show today, right before I recorded this, before starting streaming. And that was nice. It's been feeling nice. I'm looking forward to having made videos on the other games I want to show you builds in. I've got a bunch of Hades build videos in mind, but I want to make the Hades video introducing you to Hades Buildcraft first. In Genshin Impact, I would like to make a video on every 4-star, how to build all the relatively more commonly owned characters, because I find that very interesting. I think there's a lot to say about them. Those would be fun videos to make. I think they'd be useful, interesting, and that's a lot of videos. That will, if I only made those, and I will not only make those videos, that would take me quite some time to make all those videos. Well, 2024, we would be done. And I will not be only making those videos. We're going to introduce other games. And so I think of that as the junk in my mental trunk. And so there's quite a bit of it, really. Is that what you were asking? That's what junk in the trunk means, right, chat? On with the show. And a few more thank yous to folks who've supported the show even more. Black Sheep, my most recent patron. Patreon is about a third of the money I make every month. So being my patron is a direct way to support the thing I'm doing and make it a feasible financial experience. I could not do this as a business without that support. So thank you very much, Black Sheep. I really enjoyed your parlay question. You're a $9 patron. And I'm looking forward to the next one. And Shalsev, thank you for the very generous $290 tip. This was quite a while ago. But you tipped me $290. I'm very glad that you feel like this is worth that to you. I know folks have different amounts of means. Everybody might have $1. Not everybody can be so generous, but I really appreciate that. That's awfully thoughtful of you. I always like to mention during this segment that, you know, a good sustainable business model for this type of career involves support big and small. And so folks who pay $1 every month and folks who tip $290, like, it takes both, you know, it wouldn't work without both. So thank you all. I really appreciate it. Welcome back. Let's sprit. Are we able to be called sugar daddies if we donate? I will not enter a even nominally sexual involvement with someone for money, but I can call you a sugar glider. Is that some other term? Is that an okay term? Chat, give me an Urban Dictionary check on the term sugar glider. Does it just mean the squirrels, or is there some kind of etchy thing like that? Multigrain man, let it never be said that I will not attempt to meet someone halfway. Right, what I wanted to demonstrate is apparently not on this build. Oh, that can stay, actually. Creating barrage and range. Put it on a bunch of range. I'm just moving the build over to the slot where we have all the augments and stuff. I mean, energized munitions infused. Overextended. And I also added continuity. Probably gonna add forma here at some point, but that's fine. Right, and I wanted to demonstrate how, so you see we got a magazine size of 1, has to reload every shot, but if we use energized munitions, you can now shoot it 4 times in a row before reloading, which again, for a weapon like this, that's a pretty substantial damage increase, potentially. Empathetic, thank you very much. I was worried that such a thing might be true. Thanks for the check real quick. Look at all those rockets. Whoa. Now, about the energized munitions thing, I thought about weapon choices. We have some duration built on here, but energized munitions base duration is quite low. It's only 5 seconds. This is not really necessary, but a usability thing that I really like is having energized munitions line up with how long it takes to empty the weapon's magazine. You see what I'm trying to say? So if the weapon has a kind of bigger magazine, like the Envoy does, it might still benefit from this, but I think it'd be elegant if the weapon, you know, emptied out, you know, all its rounds, took full advantage of this buff, like, during its brief duration, because I'm not sure how much room we're going to have for way more duration. Anyway, it doesn't, not necessary, but something I think would be nice. That's a reason to go for something with a aggressively smaller magazine. Kupatoncore might be a really good way to go. I don't know. This is an augment that I don't have that gives it a lot of reload speed. You have to, like, directly hit with the grenade, right? That's not particularly relevant here. Again, doesn't mean you can't use it. Oh, we were gonna look at Napalm Penta. Napalm Penta. I haven't looked at this weapon in a long time. Let's put that there. And I'm gonna add fire rate, so it'll be vial, because we're gonna extend the magazine. We got cautious shot. We got prime firestorm. We have heat and viral. And 10 explosion range of 10. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look. Ooh, the fire rate is exactly what we're looking for. It's perfect. All right, ready? Whoa! You just barely use all the rounds up by the time the duration ends. That feels great. I'm a fan. Let's just briefly experience the weapon against some, Whoa! Look at that radius! Beautiful. Oh man, that's so majestic. Yeah, the radius feels pretty good. It doesn't look very good, but you see that little napalm dot on the ground actually isn't the full radius. Huh. Yeah, I mean, that's fun. Sure. I do think this weapon benefits a lot from Energized Munitions, so that's something. Secure Penta is neat parasitic armor tech, if incredibly niche. Yeah, it is also, it's cute, that the Secura, syndicate effect, excuse me. You know, it'll boost your shields, and Hydroid does have a large shield value that it's by a % that they're increased. I'm not sure that matters that much, but like technically that is synergy with Hydroid. It's not bad. It does make that effect more significant. And if you wanted to go parasitic armor, that is like technically kind of nice too. Oh, that's not so bad. It does a radiation pulse, which will make enemies briefly attack each other too. Yeah, I mean, there's reasons to go with this. Oh, right, okay. Ooh, it's got a skin. Yeah. It also looks excellent in these colors. I'm sort of joking, but go figure. Okay, yeah, I mean, this will serve as an example anyway. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the weapon everybody would pick. That is a worthwhile example, I think. Tenet Tetra's secondary doesn't seem to work with Energized Munitions, but Kuva Hex secondary does. Oh yeah, there was a question about secondary firing modes. I didn't know. Yeah, it might be something a bit unreliable. This is a place where the spaghetti code is lurking in the shadows. I don't know. Does the Bubonico's alt fire do the big damage? I think the Bubonico does acceptable damage. Being that it has a battery magazine, it's a little bit of a weird fit here, but I like this weapon a lot. I would be happy to talk about it a little. The radius is big. Can this use Firestorm? The exposure radius of this weapon is huge. Oh, right, it's a shotgun, so it doesn't have Firestorm. Ah! It also may not have an anti-recoil mod. Is that true? Do shotguns have an anti-recoil? I mean, stagger, excuse me. An anti-stagger mod? Like Cautious Shot, but for shotguns? You don't need it here, but it's something I want from my approach. It would be really cool. The Bubonico is looks sick with this fashion. I mean, we need to recolor it, of course, but like, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. Like, well, actually, it's very easy to argue with that, but look at this jungle chungus. Whoa. And T2, I'm very aware of that, but that's a preference thing. Again, you could go with Title Impunity, use this, not need the Shotgun Anti-Stagger mod that doesn't exist. That's why I said for my approach, it doesn't make it bad. My approach is not the right approach. Yeah, visually, I really like this. I think I'd probably just remove the Syandana, actually. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan. If you wanted to go big, like, jungle volcano monster route, yeah, I mean, I like that. Visually, I'm a big fan. Big arm fashion, you gotta get that. We haven't talked about companions yet, but yeah. That being said, if you're gonna go the route of removing a stagger reduction effect, I don't love that. I'll show you it with Energized Munitions, though. I will tell you, here's what I have to say about that, Louis. That did not feel good on my finger. But, I mean, that was a lot. You know, not gonna, this is gonna be hard to argue with. But yeah, this weapon is cool. I would need to update the build. Rebind Alt Fire Shoot to scroll wheel is what would be necessary. But anyway, so that's an option. That's what that looks like. Yeah, that wasn't the greatest feeling on my hand. What are you gonna do, you know? Gonna get back our gratuitous fashion frame from before. Yeah, again, personally for me, it's you got a happy Zandy with Energized Munitions and the Secure Penta. Yeah, Tamer Gecko, I agree. I think a lot of the semi-auto weapons in Warframe are, like, they're mathematically good. You just need to fire them as an auto weapon. Many semi-auto weapons in Warframe are bad if you shoot them slower than they need to be shot, but there isn't a convenient way that doesn't give you arthritis to, you know, to click them fast enough, which is really bad. A lot of the weapons in Warframe are like you'd have to make them mathematically overpowered to feel good at the fire rate most people will actually shoot them at, but there's nothing actually wrong with them. You just can't shoot them as fast as it would be desirable to shoot them, which is bad. Like, that's just bad. Don't do that, please, Warframe. I do have some minor problems with my wrists that I'm not gonna blame Warframe for. Like, I need to look after my health too, but it didn't help. That's what I'd like to say. Other games that I make builds in hurt my wrists less. My fingers feel destroyed from work this week, even before weekend warrioring high action per minute games of choice. Joking / not joking, right? Like, flashback to Dual Toxicist. Oh no. No, yes, a weapon that is so good if you shoot it auto using a macro. Whoa, did they visually rework the ARRChive, or have they've always looked like that? Have they always looked like that? Wow. Anyway. Cool. Okay, great. So we picked out a build, mostly anyway. How to survive. How do you want to stay alive? Guess we ended up leaning into the... Could just go for the Umbral mods. We won't worry about it too much. If there isn't much to discuss about it on the stream, that's fine. But you would want to make room for that. I might just have to reformat a lot, you know? Anyway. Whatever, we won't worry about it for now. We talked about ways you could stay alive. Well, I'll fit one into the build. What about other weapons? Focus. Is Zeneric? I feel like Zeneric is pretty straightforwardly good here. Energy regen. This build doesn't desperately need mountains of energy, but it's like nice to have energy regen. To me, that says Zeneric. I want a medium to high amount of energy regen, but I don't like desperately need an ocean of energy. I don't know, Zeneric seems good for that. Melee weapons. I wanted to talk about his slam passive at some point. Should we... Is that enough for a discussion? Does that warrant discussion? Moderai to help those ability charge times. Does that work? Let's compare. Oh, it totally does. Wait, that's great. Ooh. Wow, it totally works. I don't know why I didn't think that worked. It totally does work. Yeah. Dude. Yes. Good, yes, do. Big yes. Words. Language has left me because you should do that. You don't have to get it here. You could put natural talent on your frame, which I might do. But that's a pretty big difference. Yeah. For me, that's going to be a yes. I want this effect. I don't know if I'm going to get it from here, but yeah. Ooh, that feels nice. Just in the notes, I'm going to write casting speed, yes. And yeah, we'll do a split here and talk about like peripheral stuff for the build. So the big ones are casting speed. It does affect the charge times. I would argue that a lot of these abilities are not feeling great without spending some time charging them. That's not the best feeling. Like that's a bit long. And the shorter version is great. Like that is meaningfully faster, you know. So I would say casting time, yes. You could do natural talent. You don't have to get it from Madurai, but you know, there's a discussion about, I said Zeneric before, for like a moderate amount of energy regen. You might not need it. You know, Tentacle Swarm with the Pilfering Swarm augment does make more energy, and these abilities don't take a ton of energy. Like, it's not that much energy. You might be fine without this. You could fall back on Operator energy from I forget what this arcane is called, but you know what I'm talking about. Madurai is a little awkward because you get a lot of strength that doesn't really do anything on this version of the build, but it's not like bad. That's not like awful or anything. It's just a bit awkward. This is a frame that I think I would like the Zeneric approach, but I think Madurai is a good way to do it. I'm gonna use natural talent for now, but again, it's not a bad approach to go to get it from Madurai. What happens if you stack natural talent and Madurai? Pixel, I'm pretty sure it's capped at 50%. If you have one source, and you know, a reason I found that out, I think that's true, is because of speed drift. If you're not familiar, this mod gives you 12% sprint speed and 15% casting speed, but I don't think this does anything if you already have natural talent and or Madurai. I think it caps at 50%, but I could be wrong. I did try natural talent and Madurai, and it didn't seem to work, but I'm not positive that's true. Unairu for the staggers. Ooh, that's a thought. Yeah, if you wanted to do use the Bubonico, which doesn't have a shotguns, it's a shotgun, and those don't have a cautious shot equivalent, and you don't want to keep something like Tidal Surge with its augment tidal impunity to get the stagger immunity that way. You could get it from Unairu. That's smart. They do appear to stack. What? Madurai and natural talent stack their cast speed increases? Huh. That's quick. Yeah. Woo. Sure. Yeah. You know. So I'll take it off. It's meaningfully slower. It's probably still capped at some point, but they do appear to benefit you in some way. Let's see what it looks like if you take speed drift. If you add speed drift. So no Madurai, natural talent and speed drift versus natural talent and Madurai. That kind of feels meaningfully faster to me. I don't know. That feels capped though. Like that what I just did feels like that's similar speed to going all in with the Madurai part. Maybe we're using speed drift here. I don't know. What a mod. I don't know. I'm not sure. See what you feel like feels good. My 2 cents, and it is only 2 cents, I don't know, is trying it really quickly. It kind of felt to me like your casting speed does kind of cap out somewhere. And so Madurai and Natural Talent does make you faster, but not 50% faster. And if you just do Natural Talent and Speed Drift, it feels kind of like we're nearing that cap. I could be wrong. That's what it felt like to me. Pixel, thank you for asking, because I would have overlooked that. I'm glad to be wrong. Joey, thanks for the raid. How you doing today? What's up? We're getting toward the end of our Hydroid discussion. We have Jungur Poison Frog fashion. I don't know. And we just found out that cast speed affects the charging time on using stuff like Tentacle Swarm. That's nice. Like that. Big fan of that. So yeah, I don't know. That's cool. We got set up with the Energized Munitions, which lets you do a lot more damage. You know, if enemies are in the tentacles, you kind of want to hit them with an explosive. Grab an explosive with low magazine size that does a lot of damage. Give it Energized Munitions, and then you can just pop off and bomb the tentacles until nothing remains but dead enemy corpses in your caldera volcano-like battlefield. Beautiful. Just a majestic thematic presentation. Yatagami, welcome back, by the way. I don't know if I really caught you in at the beginning of the stream. And Joey, how are you doing? How was your stream? We're just finishing up on weapon suggestions. I was briefly talking about a melee. So, you know, Hydroid does have that slam passive, makes tentacles when you do a slam. This is pretty minimal, in my opinion. I'm not sure I would build around this, but weapons that slam a lot are already very good. In particular, here is my approach for Exodia Hunt on a staff Zaw, using Flailing Branch. And this is a very good weapon anyway. So you may like simply choose to use a weapon that happens to slam a lot. I don't know if I would pick a weapon that deliberately slams the most times just for Hydroid, but like you get free tentacles anyway. It's just kind of cool. Why not use a weapon with a bunch of slams? Unless you've got some other melee utility in mind. Which you might very well. Let's spawn some enemies and look at that real quick. Why not? How does the tentacle scale? I mean, it doesn't do... None of Hydroid does meaningful damage, in my opinion. So it would really just be like grabbing enemies. And you can see, like, if you don't finish an enemy off in melee, this is not a useless effect, right? I don't know. I wouldn't pay that much to get this effect, but it's fine, you know? It kind of makes Exodia Hunt, like, more permanent. Maybe you could think of it that way. That's fine, you know? Like, it's something. I don't know how much I would be willing to pay for that effect, but it's okay. I personally think that's all right. Is there no crit chance spawn in here? What is this build? Hold on. Oh. That's why. Excuse me for just a moment, please. I want viral. We don't have enough room. Curses. I'm disappointed in you, Sakura Penta. I thought we'd been over this. Have enough room, though. This is what I demand of you. There we are. There you go. Okay. Oh, but the whole reason I was doing that was to friggin' put on hunter munitions. Anyway, whatever. I kind of like the tentacle thing. I was a little bit more impressed with that than I thought. Anyway, personally, I think I don't know if you need to go too ham for like the most slams. You saw that with just like what I would build anyway for an Exodia hunt weapon, you get tentacles, you know. Personally, that's what I recommend. You could totally go further on the tentacle thing. I wouldn't though. And I also think that this looks kind of nice without. Okay, maybe not if you do the auto color thing. Joey, I'm doing okay. I'm looking at moving in the next like month or two, maybe sooner actually. The next couple weeks to the next couple months, which has been, it's a lot. Trying to make sure that videos still get made, that I'm still working through the work I have to do while moving, and I've got relatives that are going to be staying in the space a little bit, so that'll be crowded, and there's going to be construction, and to be honest, it's quite a lot right now. But it'll be really good once I'm done. And during that time, I'm also going to finish my aligners. Some of you following this stream know that I've had these annoying plastic aligners that I've had to have for like forever. And look, some people might not mind them, but when your job is to talk constantly, it's not fun. So I'm really looking forward to getting those out, and that will be very soon. So in the next few months, a lot of things that have been a problem for me for a very long time will be over, but it will be very stressful getting from here to there. I'm not sure whether I would say that's good or not, Joey. That's how I feel right now. Thanks for asking. Does this tentacle do the loot stuff too? I don't know. A tale as old as time. It's already almost impossible to test the loot ability interactions. Do the tentacles from his passive get affected by this? I'm gonna guess no, but I don't know. I Who knows? Good question. I have no idea. And it would be phenomenally tedious to test. By the way, cast speed is uncapped. It's just that the casting time follows like the reload principle thing, right? Okay. The wiki says it does, but who knows? Yeah, like the tentacle swarm thing with pilfering swarm. It's a good question, bastards. Do you get more loot from enemies grabbed by your passive's tentacles? The wiki says yes. I don't know. You can't really know for sure without looking at the game's code. I don't know. It's a good question, but I have no idea. Let's look at all the cast speed. Fine. Yeah, I mean, that's really fast. I'm not going to tell you that's not real quick. Like, it's a lot. I am going to take it all off and show you what you lose in exchange for some mod slots and Zeneric. A lot slower. Again, very slow. Now I'm going to add back only natural talent. I just think that's a lot better. Like, it gets to the point where, like, that's kind of enough. So, that's my 2 cents. I'm going to go with Zeneric and natural talent and not worry about, like, all of the cast speed increases. But they appear to make a difference. That's true. Today I learned. Auras. Aura thoughts? Curse projection doesn't particularly do a lot because we have corroding barrage for that need. I don't know. Where are we at on that? Mr. Fu, welcome back. We're kind of finishing up. I think I'm gonna put primary fire rate up here. Power donation since you already dumped strength. I don't care about my teammates. Systax, there is also a minor bit that making your strength really low isn't ideal because Undertow does still use it. You can still kill enemies pretty effectively with very little strength on this, but I don't want it to be low. I just don't care about having a lot. For example, I think like a minor benefit of Zeneric or Madurai is they both give you a little bit of strength, which is it. You know, it's not the focus of the build, but it's not bad with Undertow. You know, it isn't. I wouldn't want to dump strength further. Thanks for bringing that up. I was meaning to mention that earlier. Growing power would be fine, but it affects so little of this loadout. Again, it's going to be very easy to activate, but when in doubt and about an aura, I always go Shepherd. Interesting. I have this aura, but don't know what it is. Increases companion health and armor. Interesting. Yeah, I cannot personally recommend this, but I don't know if I knew this existed. Apparently I have it. This is a decent amount of a bonus, too, right? It goes linearly. Your companion gets like 300 health and some okay armor. Huh. Okay. Yeah. I don't think that's good, but it's an option, absolutely. I'm happy I know it exists. Um oh, it's flat after mods. Ooh, that's not great. I have a soft spot for physique when I want the raw numbers. Yes, physique. Now we're just going through the best hits of the auras. Uh, yeah, brief respite to try to patch up survivability. Yeah, you could. I am increasingly feeling a little interested in going for shields as my form of survivability, like raw shields. Um, but that would be based on whether you took that approach. I don't think that's a bad idea. I might actually end up doing that myself, but I'm gonna write brief respite in my notes as like I might. Something I wanted to bring up is the mecha set. It came up before. Um, yeah, like the ability to kill enemies in an arbitrary area like that from the mark that spawns. I do think is a little bit better when you're crowd controlling so many enemies. That will tend to cause lots of enemies to clump in an area. So I do think that that's a bit better in that type of situation. You could definitely go mecha set. Additionally, I personally think the Sahasa Kubro is maybe a little better than usual here. If you're not familiar with Dig, this doesn't really trigger if your Kubro is really doing anything. You kind of need to pause reality to get this to do much. But Hydroid, you know, you might be just sitting in your. Does this work if you're in puddle? That's really the question. Because that's a whole thing. Hey, what are you doing over there? Enhance. Okay. Anyway, Louis said corrosive projection would help with corrosive barrage, make the armor stripping easier. Not by a meaningful amount. Corrosive projection, because of the way that armor reduction is calculated, basically just equivalates to like one hit from corroding barrage, which is extremely small. Generally, the rule of thumb with corrosive projection that I think is useful is that this doesn't play very nice with other forms of armor reduction because they're only reducing like what they have left, and then you get 80% of that. It's not like they all add together and then they lose that much armor. And even if it did, this is still pretty much just one corrosive status effect. So I personally think corrosive projection is mostly useful when you plan to try to overwhelm armor. You're not gonna try to reduce the enemy's armor any other way. So that's why I wouldn't recommend that. Uh, all right, but seriously, Kubra, I'm trying to test that thing. Jump down here. Does this normally happen? Okay, Undertow pauses your dog. Today I learned. But yeah, anyway, you can see that until I stand still, the Sahasakubro doesn't dig up ammo and stuff, but then when it does, it digs up a bunch of energy if you need energy. So, if you're running around casting a ton of stuff, you're doing your Hydroid thing, and then, oh no, I need energy, you can pause, and your Kubro will dig up a bunch. Now, I think this is kind of bad if you're playing a build where you're not crowd controlling the entire world, but that's a decent amount of energy output, so it's not a bad fit. So going Sahasakubro and then you go for the mecha set is a decent idea. Additionally, you know, I think the armor from mecha, what's it called, might be not unwelcome here. Hydroid does have decent base armor. This does give a lot of armor. Companions enter Undertow with you. Today I learned. Yeah, what the hell? Why? Anyway, interesting. A loot detector, because you're going to make more loot all over the place. Yeah, going back to what Louis said about corrosive projection, a good example of a type of build where I'm interested in corrosive projection would be like if I'm going to use raw corrosive and like cold damage should just get good damage bonuses against armor. That's a case where I think corrosive projection does a lot of work. Yeah, I don't know about dig here. Because it will get distracted if enemies are around. Let's briefly try to demonstrate that too, actually. Come on, dog. All right, so again, enemies are here. I am standing still. Oh, and it died. Okay. Classic. Another thing is I think that if you're not doing something to keep your dog alive, that can be kind of bad. There's a lot of things you can do. If you're gonna melee consistently or heal yourself consistently, like there are things you can do about that. You'd have to put them in the build though. It'd have to be something you'd want to do. I don't know. Yeah. I might be okay with something like Death Cube for energy, for a spot of energy. The thing that appeals to me about this is that because you're crowd controlling a lot of enemies, this will likely get more time to get assist credit on targets as long as you move around. And I don't think you need so much energy, nor does this generate particularly a lot of energy. So that kind of appeals to me. I like that. Death Cube is fine anyway. Ah, yes, immediately dying is an essential part of the typical Warframe dog behavior. Right. I also, yeah, you know, not for nothing, Death Cube with Energy Generator is also pretty good with Exodia Hunt. It will pull enemies into a crowd and then Death Cube will shoot once and just hit all of them. Yeah, Death Cube is good with grouping abilities. That's a little minor. Some people might not be going for this, but that's nice. That appeals to me. Cool. Yeah. Maybe I will stack all the speed increases. I liked that, in theory. Yeah. Sure, I don't know. Why not? There's nowhere else I'm gonna do. Well, let's not say never, but I'm not that excited about doing this elsewhere. I would do it here. This is an example. Oh, that's so fast. It's so much faster, anyway. Or being able to just, like... Oh. You can never go back. I mean, you absolutely can, but, like... Oh, man. Yeah. Casting speed aura. Oh. Gib. You will gib, Warframe. Okay. I think that this stream might have set a new record for least gameplay in a Zandy Warframe stream. And even for me, that's a lot. Does companion entering Undertow with you stop Vulpaphyla from putting out their viral spores? That's a good question, and I'm not sure. If I had more time, I would love to check that out. I bet it doesn't, but that's just a guess. I bet it doesn't cancel the ones already out, though, right? Thank you very much for the boosters, Yatagami. I had a bit more of some, but only about 10 days. They do really speed up getting work done in Warframe. Look at that big bongo. Oh, big chonk explosions. I always love the sound of this weapon too. It's just so chonky. Oh, those big fat projectiles. Oh, chonk, chonk, chonk. Least gameplay out of all Zandy streams is a lot, even for Zandy. Something about this sentence doesn't make sense. That's one of those Escher sentences. Like, it looks like it makes sense. You keep looking and it continues to look like it makes sense, but it doesn't actually make sense. Which, I mean, I don't know. A sentence looking like it makes sense arguably is the same as it actually making sense, but... oh, look at that. Who even cares where the enemies are in there? I don't know where they are. I don't care where they are. It just hits them all anyway. The explosion radius of this weapon is gas, but not like gas status, of course. That would be some kind of atrocity, but... oh, that's so satisfying. I do think Kubazar would feel really nice here. And I'm not, like, over the moon about this weapon's damage output with the space restriction of running the napalm grenades augment. I'd really like to run 100 munitions on this. I think that would help a lot. But it's quite crunched for space. You could figure it out, but I'd be more keen on that on a build that was buffing its damage more, which this isn't. So I'm quite keen on Kubazar. I think that would be cool. Maybe I'll grab that off stream. But yeah, I do really like the Energized Munitions Secure Penta thing. Again, I might be keen on that elsewhere. It's not a perfect fit, I don't think, but I am quite a fan. And the zone control speaks for itself. I mean, look at the safety dance on this build. Like, goodness. Oh, big Chongo. Oh, so satisfying. Why is that not negating the stagger with cautious shot? Anyway. Ooh. Was there a scheduled date for the rice and beans craft video? Let me make a timestamp because I just realized I didn't for the gameplay section. And I'll have to go back and correct that, but I'll remember. Yes, I have been doing a little side series on the Bootleg Builds channel where these go up as stream archives with timestamps. A little side series where I do your Buildcraft, generally for things in everyday life. And recently I asked for rice and beans recipes from you all. You know, it's a new thing I'm doing, and so I don't get a lot of responses. I got a few. A lot of them were things I was doing anyway. A few of them weren't. And then generally, you know, I'll pick the ones I have something to talk about with. Go over the responses that are there. They can be on Twitter. They can be on the previous video in the series on the Bootleg Builds channel. You know, kind of wherever. Yeah, if you have suggestions for rice and beans stuff, you can go to my Twitter account and post on there, or you'll find the Bootleg Builds video about the bagels, and you could post it there. So yeah. Anyway. When exactly is that going to go up? You know, Yatagami, it is a little less formal. Obviously, it's a very on the back burner type of video on my channel because it's mostly just like an oddity that I enjoy. Like, it doesn't, you know, it's the one that least justifiably makes me any money. So it should be after the things that I'm required to do to continue making a living. I like making it, but it isn't particularly responsible for me to prioritize it. But probably this weekend I'll have time. I'm happy you're interested in it. I know it's really quite right up your alley. I do think it's quite on brand too. Like, life hacks are basically just Buildcraft in daily life. That is a thing I'm quite keen on, like really customizing your life output. I really like that. I spend a lot of mental energy on that, and to me, a really good indicator that your YouTube channel is doing the things that it'd be good if it did is, do you spend a ton of mental energy on this thing that could benefit other people? Yes. Would you enjoy making it into videos? You know, you wouldn't want to make everything you enjoy into videos, but not everything you enjoy benefits other people. So make the things that do benefit other people into videos, and then don't make the things that don't benefit other people into videos. Life balance and a sustainable career all in one. So anyway, that's why I make that series. I think it's a good estuary of those two things. Yeah, Tagami, I would say only a few days. You make it quick. That's I don't mean to put pressure on you, but I'm gonna make it soon. Cool. Yeah, I mean, we have a decent shell for this loadout that I'm pretty happy with at the moment. I don't know about a secondary, and I'm really keen on like Kuvazar in particular. I'm gonna look at more primaries for this build. I think Secura Penta, again, like many builds will have they will have some slot on them that kind of solves the issue of like napalm grenades takes up a slot. This is good. This is an effective mod, but it does take up a space. This is usually pretty minor as long as you don't want like also fire rate, also firestorm, also, you know, all these peripheral mods. And I think the downfall of the Secura Penta is that this gives the weapon a bit of a tax on fitting in all these damage things that it doesn't need. It doesn't particularly do so much damage that I don't care about the extra mod slot, right? You can do a lot to help with that. You could get base damage from your arcane slot. You could use a Warframe arcane to give it more damage or attack speed or fire rate, I mean. You could use a Warframe ability to give it more damage, but on a loadout that doesn't particularly have space for those things, we kind of do, but not like an unusual amount, right? This is a weapon where I'd want to take the most advantage of this by putting it on a loadout that really buffs gun damage, which this loadout really doesn't. So that's my 2 cents. It's not a bad choice at all, but this loadout definitely doesn't play to its strengths. That's how I feel. Again, you can still do some of that. You can get your base damage from your arcane. You can get some crit from the arcane slot. You know, there's lots of things you can wiggle around. Although do note that I think this weapon is off by quite a few mod spots, not just 1 or 2. I would want, in addition to these 8 mods, this is just the crit chance mod. In addition to these 8 mods, I would want 100 munitions, Bane of Grenier, and a fire rate mod. So again, like, you can put one of those in an arcane slot, you can put one of those in the weapon arcane slot, the Warframe arcane slot, get one from a Warframe power, but that's a lot to give the weapon on a loadout that just isn't really doing that particularly a lot. It just kind of feels like Hydroid isn't the place, that's all. But it is thematically really cool. It doesn't make the weapon bad, like, it's still perfectly fine, as you saw. Just not an amazing fit. Again, something that's asking just a little less of the loadout around it would, I think, be a bit better here. It's a disservice to this weapon too, which like could do like perfectly awesome damage if only you gave it the space. So yeah, you know, the magazine of this weapon is also like sort of big. It's not, you know, benefiting enormously from Energized Munitions. It's just like kind of good. It's not perfect. It doesn't have a tiny magazine. Kuva Ogress has come up a lot in discussions, and I do think that kind of fails to scale its damage because it doesn't have the crit. But it does do a lot of damage. It is a similar weapon you might want to explore. It is definitely better with Energized Munitions. It's got that tiny magazine size. So again, there's a lot you can do. I hope you get the point that in my mind, like, Hydroid just isn't. If a weapon was asking for so much extra support, I would rather put it on a frame, on a build that is doing that. And Hydroid, the way we've built him, really isn't that frame. I'm really keen on something like Again, I think Kuvazar might be like the pretty much perfect one to go to. Let's briefly look at that actually. Kuvayar, because I don't have it. I would have to go get it. I probably will go get it. I love the Tsar, and it's a cannon. I mean, you can't beat the anyway. Um, you know, um, pretty small magazine size. It's got okay base fire rate. The reload is long as all hell, but you can use the synth set to reload it. You can just swap off it. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a little worried about the cluster bombs not feeling good with. Anyway, so it's something to try. And you can see how like the magazine size is a pretty favorable interaction with. It really benefits a lot from Energized Munitions. So, is there anything else to talk about? I think that's pretty much it. Talked about focus. Yeah, all the casting speed works if you want that. I think Zeneric might be more consistent, but yeah. And again, they're like I'd want to try the Kuvazar before I put that in the main video. So that's a thought. I do like Death Cube here. I think the Hellstrom is what I want. This will help it hit enemies grabbed by tentacles really easily. This is very good. Energy Generator is very effective with Exodia Hunt, which is very effective with Hydroid's Tentacle passive. So that's a nice little package you can fit in, a little sub-theme. We didn't do a lot about the survivability. Again, at the moment, I literally just have Umbral Vitality on. I think I'd like to put on Umbral Fiber as well. I might consider dropping Natural Talent for that. I'm not sure I feel like I really need all the cast speed. I don't know. I'm not sure. I do want some pretty badly. So yeah, survivability was the thing I didn't fully address, but we talked about it a bit at the beginning. I don't like recommending something like Arcane Guardian and Adaptation, because then all your damage reduction is like after you take damage and die. That's not great. Hydroid has pretty okay base armor. I would be keen on going Umbral Fiber in this space. You could cut Augur Reach. You could cut some strength. I mean, some range. You could cut Pilfering Swarm or Corroding Barrage if you weren't that high on them. I like them. Ace, I laughed earlier and didn't get back to it where or at the beginning of the stream you said 3 of these mod polarities, augment polarities. That's very on brand for me. I almost always put tons of ability augments on frame builds because I think that they're not as interesting if you don't. And I do often think that the build that actually accomplishes something on the frame is got a lot of augments. Yeah, like augments are really good. But 3 is a pretty comical number. Like they always cost 9, so it's almost always better to do like a V somewhere or something. You're gonna have no V mods on a build, you know. I don't know about that. If you have literally any duration or any strength, you know, like your build is dumping strength and duration, maybe, probably not very often, you know. It's a pretty safe choice to put like a dash, a D, a V, you know. I don't know about 3 of these. That was just such a very me thing to do. If you've been watching these, you know, we're doing every frame in the game. We're going through them week by week. This time every week, if you enjoyed that, I hope I'll see you back sometime. If you've been following along with these, you know, this is a very typical of me thing to do, having 3 of this polarity. I said one time that I don't often put them on a lot, but my older frames I used to. It doesn't make that much sense. You should just put on a variety. But that's a good future-proofing thing to do. But anyway, that's funny. Yeah, topics for another time. I would like to come back to Secura Penta. You know, one thing I like, because I think it's a fun way to cover builds in a game as broad as Warframe, is like we said, Secura Penta with its extra mod slot demand of napalm grenades maybe would be a better fit on a Warframe build that was giving more to the weapon, that gave the weapon some base damage, some etc., which maybe isn't Hydroid, the way that we've built Hydroid today. But like, who would that be? And we will probably come around to a frame like that. There's any number of options. I like that kind of thing. I look forward to circling back around to this weapon when we find that point. So yeah, just to say, like, this is a really interesting mod too. Ace, you said napalm grenades is weird because it functionally changes the Penta's innate element from blast to heat. It's like it subtracts an element from the weapon. It'd be really cool to have a series of mods that removed an element from a build. That could be cool. Anyway, yeah, like I think I'm gonna put Czar here to remind myself that I want to try that when I get Kuvazar, but I am a little worried about the bomblets hitting enemies in the tentacles. So I'll try it. Anyway, we'll try a variety of things. But yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for the great stream. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll come back next week when we're going to be doing this every week. I will be moving sometime in the next few months, but I'll announce way ahead of time when I'll be gone. I'll know a few weeks in advance, so don't worry about that too much. And yeah. So next week, we have to talk about who we're doing next. And it's going to be the next frame in alphabetical order that is primed after Hydroid. Which is in ARROS. Oh boy. That's going to be a thing. All right. I'm not sure whether to be excited about this one or like really worried, you know? I'm not going to say anything else. We're just going to see what happens. So, next week, this time next week, we normally start about 2 hours ago. So if you were free that time next week, bring your Helminth ability suggestions. You know, keep in mind Gloom, Breach Surge. These are good Helminth abilities on every Warframe. It's not very helpful to suggest those. Like, obviously, like they're good abilities. We all know. Don't recommend those. It's not helpful. We might talk about them if we circle around to the point where it just feels like, why anything else, you know? But on Inaros, I really don't think, especially Gloom, and really Breach Surge too, like, I don't know, if this feels like a frame where that's really not going to be where we end up. But I'm not sure. Inaros is interesting, right? Like, in a world of Warframes that mostly, World of Warframes, that the new MMORPG, in a world of Warframes that largely have like a damage reduction ability or some kind of way to stay alive, some kind of way to do more damage, and then some kind of survivability or crowd control ability, Inaros says, hold my beer about the staying alive part, and then just doesn't do anything about the damage increasing part, which I guess is fine. Like, we've talked a lot with Gyre. When Gyre came out, we talked about how, you know, in a game where you can add any of those things, you can add a survivability ability, you can add a damage increase ability, you can add any of those things. And so having a Warframe that goes hard in one category at the expense of another category is theoretically really good, because it's okay to lack a damage increase, you can just add one. It's okay to lack survivability, you can just add it. And in exchange, Gyre has, I would argue, a very powerful offensive benefit, significantly more powerful than some other frames. The ability to make your bullets into Saren's Spore ability. That's very good in Warframe. And Inaros is arguably the opposite, right? Like, he's just really, really tanky, and then you could just add, I don't know, Zada's Whisper or Roar or whatever if you really want a damage buff, and then he's an amazing Warframe, right? Build your own Rhino. I'm not sure there's a lot to discuss for build tech though, right? Like, but is this going to be that interesting to like talk about is the reason I was like, right? So we'll see. You know, if you're not excited about this, I get it. This is the kind of Warframe that I kind of look forward to doing. You know, the entertainment lies in the frames that are ultra complicated, tons of build hooks, and like literally nothing to discuss, in my opinion. Those are where the best streams are, not the frames where it's like Equinox. Like, yeah, there's some builds you can make. It's fine. Here are some Helminth ability suggestions. That might be a helpful stream, but the most entertaining stream, the stream where I learn the most, I don't know. You know, I don't know about all that. In Aros, we will leave that stream changed compared to how we arrived. I'm not sure the change will be good. I'm not sure that we will like the change, but changed we will be at the end of that stream. Anyway, I'll see you guys later.